Why do we approach patterns from a biological perspective? Fuzzy logic and chaos theory take the centerpiece in the 21st century science. How great would it be if we could recognize subtle human emotions and soothe away loneliness? If we could figure out ways to ease solitude and alienation in modern human life and realize the dream of longevity at the same time, we would be able to look forward to a life of happiness for the humanity. Biology today is the most important academic paradigm that has the potential to lead new creations. Even architectural design is being combined with biotechnology that utilizes biological concepts to move into uncharted territories. If we express unique designs in nature as numbers or letters, discovering its patterns become much easier. Pine cones reveal a number series of nature, the Fibonacci sequence. This sequence is characterized by the third number being a sum of the two preceding numbers. If you look closely at a pine cone, we can see that the number of spirals going one way and the number of spirals going in the opposite direction increase according to the Fibonacci sequence. When this is simplified into the geometric form of lines, it becomes a detailed shape, and order appears from the complexity. This order creates geometric patterns. This is our fifth story about patterns. Patterns are an important element of not only the structures within nature but also those of buildings, movie screens, scene design for theatrical performances, and many more. The word pattern originally comes from the Latin word pater or patronus, which means father, sponsor, god, and master. We can understand it as referring to the types of recurring subjects or a series of components in an event or on an object. No two wave patterns on the sand created by the wind in the desert are identical, nor do they repeat in specific intervals. Yet, we recognize them as patterns and express them as lines. A biological approach to patterns applied to buildings dramatically increased our choices. Many patterns are related to structures within nature. Snow crystal, bubbles, sponges, the protein folding patterns, wave patterns, and knots are just a few examples. When drawing a bird's-eye view picture of a park that people often visit for peace, the application of geometric designs to create patterns keeps visitors feel at home. A close view would look like no more than a gathering of living and non-living things, but from a distance, a pattern would reveal itself. Combining various materials to create three-dimensional patterns on the outer wall of buildings is another method that is used. Linking architecture to the structures of living organisms through a mathematical insight may require a consideration of the evolutionary process of living organisms. Beavers are used to living underwater and are well known for being masters of dam building. Beavers look a lot like gophers but have small ears, a flat tail covered in scales, and webbed hind feet. The color of their coat ranges from chestnut to one that is almost black. Beavers also have highly developed front teeth, which allows them to gnaw on trees and cut down ones with a diameter of 5 to 10 centimeters fall in a matter of minutes. Beavers usually live in streams or swamps. Those that live in small streams gnaw on trees near the stream with their sturdy teeth and stack up mud and stones to make a dam. The dams are usually 20 to 30 meters long but even reach 650 meters in some cases. Beaver dams in homes are so big that people can walk into them. In this sense, we can say beavers are great architects. Insects live within the greatest proximity of humans, making them easy to spot. An insect's body is divided into head, thorax, and abdomen, and there are 6 legs attached to the thorax. Taking up over 75% of all animals on the earth, insects are great in number and has a wide variety. So far, over 1 million species of insects have been discovered. Then what do these numerous kinds of insects do? Insects clean up the forest by eating animal corpses and fallen leaves. Further, insect frass becomes the nutrients necessary for plants in forests to grow. Insects also help maintain the ecosystem by becoming the food source for other animals and helping plants pollinate. Insects are small invertebrates that protect their bodies with a hard shell called exoskeleton. Most insects go through a transformation process, metamorphosis, changing from an egg, larvae, pupa, to an adult. Some insects do not go through the pupa stage and grow directly into an adult. Holometabolous insects go through complete metamorphosis, which means that they go through the pupa stage, while hemimetabolous insects go through incomplete metamorphosis, that does not go through the pupa stage. The pair of antennae on insects' heads serves the function of sensing not only touch, but also smell, sound, and taste. Many insects have 2 compound eyes and 3 ocelli. Compound eyes are made up of more than thousands of ommatidia, so the world looks like a mosaic in the eyes of the insects. Compound eyes lack the ability to focus, so objects that are further than 1 meter away look blurry. Compound eyes quickly detect movement and differentiate color, while ocelli detect light and dark. As we can see from the eyes of insects, beehives, and snow crystals, we can often observe in nature regular hexagons alongside each other to fill up a plane. Compared to equilateral triangles or squares, regular hexagons create the shortest length of sides where shapes touch each other, making them more economical and stable. It would be an overstatement to say honeybees think like humans, that they went through a process of contemplation and calculation to build regular hexagon-shaped honeycombs, but nature intuitively follows the most mathematical laws. To fully understand and use the various patterns we see in our everyday lives, we need to be fully familiar with symmetry and congruency of figures. Tessellation refers to filling up a plane with identical shapes with no gaps in between. Tessellation comes from meaning small square-shaped stones or tiles used in ancient Roman mosaics. In other words, tessellation has the same meaning as tiling or mosaics. We can observe tessellations in the 4th century BCE Islamic tapestry, clothes, rugs, tiles on furniture, and buildings. Further, they also appear in other regions, including Egypt, Rome, Persia, Greece, Arabia, Japan, and China. The most famous case of tessellation can be found in Alhambra, an Islamic-style building in Granada, Spain. The biggest characteristic of its floors, walls, and ceilings is that they tessellate with unique designs repeating itself. Because idolatry is forbidden in Islam, drawings of people or animals could not be used in decorations. This is why the Alhambra's walls, floor, and ceiling are covered in geometric arabesque unique designs. The palace was named Alhambra because of the red stones that were used to build the structure on top of a rocky hill. Examples of tessellations also often appear in traditional Asian patterns. Door grating patterns on traditional Asian houses or temples are one example. Tessellations are also commonly seen in block paving, bath tiles, packaging of products, and clothes. Tessellations do more than just provide humanity its artistic beauty. Its patterns contain the mathematical concept and meaning of infinity, allowing us to go beyond the dull methods of studying mathematics and learn about its interesting aspects, such as geometrical symmetry, translation, rotation. Could we express the universe through movement and rotation of figures? Nature is governed by an unchanging law. If we were to figure out this law, we could make predictions on what the future would bring. The prediction ability living organisms have is their capability to survive and preserve their species. The ability to construct and understand patterns based on traces in nature is a creative ability to control life and death. Being visually aware of the patterns is insufficient for such survival ability. Humans need to make comprehensive judgments based on all five senses. What shape does paper airplanes or kites in the sky look like to children? What form do reflections in the mirror take? What shape would the water bottle caps take when they are being opened or closed? Objects we can see around us are moving in various ways. Their movements may look random, but close observation reveals that they move, flip, and rotate according to a pattern. Finding out how everyday objects in our life move and change, regardless of whether they have a special shape, is an ideal way to study math. How great would it be if math education were about tracing a drawing on a graph paper on a tracing paper to understand the movement of figures? Translating, flipping, and rotating the figure firsthand, figuring out how figure had moved and trying to explain it would also be a big help in learning math. Understanding the basic concepts of movement of figures will help find rules from a variety of sequences using figures. Imagine our clock on the wall. Could we move the clock the way it is to another location without rotating or flipping it? Moving an object is also called parallel transport. Moving various figures left, right, or diagonally does not change their shapes and sizes. What if we were to turn the clock slightly? We would have to tilt our heads to read the clock. Only then would we be able to tell the time accurately. Changing a figure by rotating it is also called rotation. Although the size and shape do not change, the direction the figure is facing changes. However, if you rotate it a full circle, it becomes its original shape. Figures that have rotational symmetry becomes its original shape even when rotated less than a full circle. Still, a commonality that every shape is that if it is rotated by a full circle, it always becomes the same shape it originally was. People look at the mirror every morning. Our left hand becomes the right hand of our reflection, and the right foot of the reflection becomes our left foot. Our reflections in the mirror is a reversed image of ourselves. Movement of a figure after being flipped is called symmetric transformation. Finding figures in our lives that move and Finding the movement of figures within our daily lives and studying how they moved and how they shifted in shapes or sizes is also useful in studying the rules that govern figure. We can see the beauty of patterns in knots, where the wisdom and value of our ancestors live on. Knots are made by tying, knitting, and weaving one or more strings together. A knot has a unique pattern where the front and the back look the same and starts and ends in the center, forming a bilateral symmetry. Tying, knitting, and weaving is something that can be done in our everyday lives no matter where we come from. It is a skill that has been utilized throughout history and therefore is very familiar to us. Although we cannot know for sure when knots were first used, it is thought to have naturally started appearing in the process of making nets for catching fish or collecting tools for hunting since ancient times. Korean traditional knots are not easy to understand the principles that underlie them and make just by looking at records or relics. These knots have been handed down as a tradition between people. Alongside knots, braids have been used as clothing or decorations for a long time. A braid refers to a string made from weaving several strands of thread. The origin of braids come from ripped tree barks or animal skin into long threads or vines from grass or trees. To make them more durable and stronger, two strands were twisted together at first, which developed into a string with more than 4 strands woven together. Traditional Korean knots were most widely used in the Joseon dynasty as decorations for court ceremonies, interior design, traditional instruments, and for trimmings at the end of palanquins or women's clothing, which continue to be passed down until today. The knot used for aesthetic purposes teaches us about the sophisticated lifestyle of the ancestors. Knots tighten the grip using a braid, thereby including techniques to make different shapes as well as the shapes themselves. Matop, the Korean term for knots, mean weaving every strand and putting them together, as can be seen from the Chinese characters used to refer to it. This means that a single string forms 3 or more intersections, coming together in an overlapping form. The beauty of Korean knots is determined by how the braids are knitted and tightened, so it is important to make the knot in the right order. Also, the knots made with brightly dyed braids show off the 5 cardinal colors, maximizing the beauty of patterns. Patterns made by following a rule can be made with 1 or more shapes. Also, the shapes within it may be shifted using a single method at times, and multiple methods in others. We can make new patterns by moving, flipping, and rotating 2 or more shapes. When looking at a pattern, we can see how a shape was moved. A pattern can be made by flipping or rotating a shape or by moving a shape. Various patterns can be made through different methods patterns even if there is just one shape. We must also keep in mind that a pattern can be seen as 2 different patterns by 2 different people. In other words, there is not just one way to make a pattern. This also means that there are many ways to cover a figure. By moving, flipping, and rotating pieces, we can cover any plane given. In that case, could we say that small pieces of a figure can always cover up the full figure? Let us say there is an equilateral triangle with 6 cm sides and another equilateral triangle with 5 cm sides. We will try to completely cover the 2 figures using an equilateral triangle that has a side of 2 cm. The triangle with 6 cm sides can be completely covered by the smaller triangle piece since the length of its sides is 3 times the smaller one. However, the 5 cm sided triangle would always leave a portion of the small triangle outside if we were to put 2 pieces into it. We call figures that have the same shape but different size similar figures. When covering a similar figure, we must check that the length of each sides of the bigger figure is a multiple of the smaller figure sides. In other words, we have to check if it can completely cover the figure. We call covering the shape of a determined plane figure with puzzle pieces silhouette. Tangrams, a widely known silhouette, can make various shapes using 7 pieces. A tangram board consists of 5 triangles of different sizes, 1 square, and 1 parallelogram. By assembling and positioning these pieces appropriately, we can make a square, the basic shape of a tangram board. In China, where tangrams were first invented, tangrams were also called the board of wisdom, because it was a form of entertainment that was thought to develop thinking skills. There are over 1,000 known meaningful shapes that can be made with the 7 pieces. We can make shapes ranging from everyday objects that are widely used around us to abstract shapes that help us understand the logic of things and the principles of the universe. A representative shape of this is the questions and answers between Fisher and lumberjack shape. This shape contains a philosophical teaching to leave honor and gain behind and take the time to question the logic of the heavens and the earth. It is surprising that everything in the universe can be expressed through these 7 pieces. A type of living organism that is so many in number and easy to spot around us is insects. Insects are also easy to observe under a microscope compared to other living organisms. Even when using an electron microscope, the preparation procedures are relatively simple. That is because insects' exterior is a hard shell. The hard outer layer of the insects maintains their original shape very well even when we make specimens out of them. The hard shell insects have is called an exoskeleton. While the human bones are inside the body, the insects have a similar structure outside their body. This is why we call it an exoskeleton. Bones that are inside the body, like those of humans, is called an endoskeleton. Every time we look at insects through a microscope, we can feel a new kind of beauty. This is because even if we look at the same part of the same insect, we see a different image each time depending on the angle and magnification. An insect's compound eye is made up of hundreds and thousands of small ommatidia. The compound eyes cannot see objects clearly. However, they can easily detect movement, which is helpful for avoiding danger. Honeybees' eyesight is 80 to 100 times worse than humans. Honeybees cannot see the color red, they can only see 3 colors: green, yellow, blue and ultraviolet rays. The 3 ocelli between the compound eyes detect light. Damselflies have eyes that are huge compared to their body size in order to catch fast-moving prey. A compound eye is made up of 28,000 units called ommatidia. Damselflies use over 80% of their brain to process visual information. Since ancient times, the first way humans invented things was through mimicking nature. Biomimetics refers to making things that can make our everyday lives much more convenient by mimicking the amazing capabilities of plants and animals that we had taken for granted. This makes nature the greatest teacher for humans. What new technology can we make using patterns? Stealth refers to a concealment function usually used on fighter planes, battleships, or submarines. Conductors are objects electricity can pass through. Flat conductors send back most of the energy in the direction it has entered through the surface, giving them the lowest level of stealth effect. But surfaces like cylinders that have a curved surface, which disperse the energy from the outside. This effect is the strongest for cone shapes. In other words, the stealth effect of cones is the biggest. However, most fighter planes and battleships have a flat shape. When radar waves come at a near 90-degree angle on a flat surface, it generates a strong reflection of the radar, but radar waves from other angles do not reflect back the direction it came from. This works the same way as flat mirrors. By adjusting the angle of the mirror appropriately, the light becomes invisible. For this reason, recent weapon systems consisting of stealth fighter planes and battleships continue to be made in polyhedron shapes with flat surfaces. In addition, stealth combat planes also have technology that utilizes damselflies compound eyes. Stealth technology that prevents detection by the enemy is important, but it is also very important to spot the enemy's fighter planes before they do. Every object gives off a different wavelength at a certain temperature. Infrared detectors detect the infrared coming off of objects, allowing them to detect objects that do not show up on the radar. This makes it possible to chase enemy fighter airplanes even at night when the lack of visible light makes it impossible to see the fighter airplanes. Radar is a device that uses electromagnetic waves to determine the distance, direction, and altitude of an object. Electromagnetic waves propagate even when there is no medium, so they are used to explore areas we cannot detect. When electromagnetic waves are blasted at an object, it gets reflected back, which an antenna would receive. A proper analysis of the signal tells us much information about the object. This is a representative example of using principles of patterns in nature. The snowy and icy roads during the winter are as much as 4 to 8 times more slippery than usual, leading to a higher likelihood of car accidents from tires spinning. In these situations, snow tires are absolutely necessary. Snow tires allow us to drive safely on icy roads. Pressing down the brake on regular tires stops the car after sliding about 10 meters, but snow tires decrease this to only about 6 to 8 meters. What secrets does the snow tire have? They do not look much different from regular tires. However, the stopping distance is shorter with snow tires because of the tread, which is the patterns on the tire, and the material that comes in contact with the ground. We typically think treads are no more than 7 to 8 millimeters deep molded grooves on the tire that make up simple patterns. However, within them are the secrets of tires. The shape of the tread determines the tire's braking and driving forces. It also has other various effects, such as improving stability, preventing slipping and heat, reducing noise, and improving ride quality. Most tires have one of 3 basic tread patterns: rib, lug, and block patterns. Sometimes, tires are produced to have a combination of these patterns. Tires with rib patterns are often seen in general cars. They have zigzag or wave-shaped molds in the same direction of tire rotation. Because rib patterns are effective at reducing noise and improving ride quality, it is frequently used for cars that drive on the paved roads. Lug patterns, typically used for trucks and buses, have grooves on both sides of the tire. A drawback of the tires with lug tread is that it causes more noise, but it is perfectly suitable for the cars that press down more heavily in the front and back. The treads in snow tires are deep and block patterned. When a car drives snowy roads, it presses the snow on the ground. As a result of water melting due to the pressure, the area that tires contact with the ground gets wider. If the water cannot be drained properly, the car will definitely slip. To prevent tires from slipping on the snowy roads, these tires have deeper treads so that the tires can get a better grip on the roads. The block pattern treads are designed in a way that effectively drains the water formed by the pressure of the tires to the side and help the car continue to move forward. The deep treads not only increases braking force but also prevents slipping forward, backward, and sideways. What materials are used to make the tires is also important. The general tires made with carbon black mixed into rubber become stiffer as the weather gets colder. Snow tires, on the other hand, are made with a mixture of synthetic rubber and silica, a new material extracted from sand, in order to decrease the change in texture caused by the temperature drop. By doing so, the tires remain soft even in the winter, maintaining higher traction and preventing spinning tires. This is easier to understand with the knowledge that foam rubber does not slip as easily as ordinary rubber on the snow. Likewise, science is also hidden in a circular tire. In summary, the reason why snow tires have deep treads is to get a better grip on the snowy roads. And on icy roads, fine sponge-like materials and small treads are used instead of deep treads to hold onto the snow. Tires are not just a simple car part that is made of rubber. We must realize that advanced technology is hidden even in the design of a circular tire. This is not to say that snow tires are great in every way. They also have shortcomings. Because of many and deep grooves in snow tires, they make much more noise during drives compared to the ordinary tires. This works the same way as the louder sound that comes from clapping with cupped hands. Biotechnology is a field that studies technologies that utilize the unique genetic functions of animals and plants in many different industries. The primary goal of biotechnology is to draw out the characteristics of living organisms into a picture and then to find out what kinds of patterns lay within. The ultimate goal of biotechnology is to enrich human life by developing new technologies utilizing patterns. Biotechnologists are attempting various studies to come up with solutions that can realize the eternal human dream of longevity through specific methods such as treating incurable diseases. The word biotechnology immediately reminds us of the genome project that is actively studied today. Biotechnologists thought that once the human genome map is completed, it would be possible to conquer many diseases, an eternal problem for humanity. In addition, biotechnologists also assumed that it will be possible to not only attain longevity but also develop new medicines providing maximum effects according to individual genetic characteristics. However, this dream has yet to be achieved. it has been confirmed that it is not easy to find out the secrets of life and death in living organisms. Biotechnology that we are most familiar with is paternity tests. It allows us to use genetic identification to determine whether a family is biologically related. Because DNA exists in every cell, it is detected in the hair roots, blood, mucous membrane in the mouth, and even in sperms. Genetic identification can identify every individual. In the past, the only way to find criminals was to use fingerprints. This method was useless when no fingerprints are left at the scene. Today, however, if there is so much as a gum chewed by the criminal on the scene, forensic scientists can very quickly identify the criminal. DNAs, like fingerprints, have distinct parts that identify individuals. Because every individual has a unique genome, we can identify every individual through genetic identification. The DNA chip is a technology that utilizes patterns in living organisms and DNA. DNA chip refers to a small chip that contains condensed genetic information. It is used to treat diseases that are difficult to cure, caused by genetic defects. Hundreds of thousands of DNA are fixed in a helix form within a DNA chip. DNA has the double helix form due to the property of adenine to bond with thymine and cytosine to bond with guanine. DNA chips is a technology that utilizes the structure and property that contains the secrets of living organisms. The word spiral contains the meaning of a smooth curve, and this curve stretches while revolving in a twisted form. A spiral is a whirlpool-shaped line or a smooth curve revolving around a point. A spiral is a line of life created by nature.